Okay, the Ninja 250 has about, let's see, about 13,321 miles, as you can see right there. And it's due for new brake pads. The pads have actually worn completely through the padded side down to the metal backing plates that's on there. So the Ninja is going to need brand new brakes. Thankfully, my friend over at D&D Cycles here in Pensacola has set me up with a brand new set of brake pads to replace on the Ninja 250. So we're going to do that this morning. It's about 9:30 in the morning. I have to leave at about 10. So we're going to real quickly change these pads out, and everything's going to be beautiful, and we're going to be on our way. So we've got a, let's see here, 12 millimeter extended ratchet. Okay, we got all that nice stuff set up there, and we're going to go ahead and take off the front brake caliper for starters. Alright, down below here, this is the brake caliper, and these are the two caliper mounting bolts. And those two bolts have to come off, and then we're going to go ahead and remove the caliper. Most caliper type brakes usually mount the same way, with two bolts that either go in here or they go in from the back side this way. You know, they go in directly from this side. The whole caliper will actually remove now that the bolts are out. Yeah. And then you want to look down inside of here at the pads. And as you can see, there is very, very little flesh left on that pad. So we're going to replace these pads that you see right in here. And I've got a brand new set of EBCs that are going to go in there. Now, believe it or not, my front brake is in better shape than the rear. The pads on the front and rear, in fact, I think the calipers even, are identical on a 2008 Ninja 250. But the rear pads have worn through before the front ones did. But it's just unusual to me. I guess I'd use the rear brake more than my front. But we're going to have those pads replaced in just a sec. Okay, as I said, the front and rear brake pads are the same, so it's the identical part number for the front and the rear. So these brakes are going to be identical in front and rear. So we're just going to grab a set, any set, and this is what's going to go up inside of that caliper. As you can see on these pads, there's a lot more meat on them than there was on the old ones. So these pads are brand new. Now when you handle these pads, you want to make sure you don't get them all greasy. Your hands want to be pretty clean. Mine are pretty clean, generally. Pretty clean. But if you get like chain grease on it, grit, and just stuff that's really going to contaminate these things, it's going to cause your brakes to slip. And that's going to be really dangerous when you get out on the road. So we're going to keep these things as clean as possible. Thankfully, my hands are already quite clean, and the bike has been generally kept rather on the clean side. So I don't think that we're going to have too many problems. As I mentioned in my chain replacement video, I don't like Allen keys. And these brake pads are actually held in by two Allen key bolts that go right through the front here. They extend all the way through the caliper to this side. And then these pads are going to fall off. So what we've got to do is we've got to remove those two bolts, and then the pad should fall right out of it. Now I've got my trusty ratchet with a Allen key socket on the end here, and a friend of mine who's going to see this video once again is going to tease me, but these things give you much more leverage than a standard Allen key does. You also have the ability to run an extension on it, and the extension keeps your hand away from all the sharp metal parts. It also keeps the sharp metal Allen key from scratching your paint. And I wish more people would understand that. Maybe some people do, maybe some people don't, but I don't use regular Allen keys for that reason. Just not enough leverage and too easy to scratch things or well, even hurt my hands. Alright, those pins have been removed. So now the brake pads, which are up here, are ready to come on out. And quite literally, they just swing right out of position. So they just swing right out of there. See? That's all there is to it. Now the new ones just go right into their place. One of them has a guide on it. This is the old brake pad, and it has a guide. So you can tell that that's the one that goes in like that. This little clip on the end goes ahead and slides into the little spot on the caliper here. So it's really easy to get these things oriented the correct way. You can't get them wrong or just put them in backwards because it just won't let you. Now you can see here just how worn that old brake pad is on the right. It's really, really thin, and there's not much meat left on that thing at all. Now the new brake pad that's on the left there has a lot more padding material on it, so we're going to reinstall these new brake pads, and we'll put the caliper back together. Should only take a minute. Now, as is the same with most disc brake vehicles, when you replace those pads, you got to push the pistons back in. Now, this is a little bike, so the pistons are really easy to push back in by hand. I don't need a piston squeezer or a pair of huge pliers or something, but these pistons actually push right back on in there, and I just push them in with my thumb. That's all there was to it. Alright, the new brake pads are in. The disc that's actually on the wheel right here will be pinched between these calipers. So it has to fit in between there. So you want to make sure those pistons are squished in as far as they need to be. In this case, it looks like it's going to fit in there. I don't think we're going to have a problem. But the next thing we need to do is we need to tighten up those Allen key bolts. The Allen key bolts have been snugged up. But it's just a lot easier to tighten up these bolts to the proper torque specifications when they're on the bike. So we're going to mount the caliper back where she belongs, and then we're going to come back to those Allen key bolts and tighten them back up. But at this point, it's just a matter of making that caliper between the disc fit between these two brake pads. So it's going to be a little bit of finagling because these pads are kind of thick, and they're probably even thicker than factory. EBC, as I do understand, does make some better brake pads than some of the factory stuff, so we'll be putting this caliper right back on the bike. Alright, we have our trusty 12mm socket, and we're going to go ahead and tighten these bolts right back up the way they need to be. Snug. And you want to make sure that you check your service manual for the appropriate torque specifications for tightening these guys down. Every bike is going to be a little bit different. The 250 bike, I'm going to step inside in a few minutes, and we're going to go ahead and get the torque specifications. Now, the next thing we want to do that we don't want to forget is we have to tighten up those Allen key bolts that are holding in those brake pads. And they don't have to be very tight, but nonetheless, you want to check your torque specifications from inside of your service manual for your respective motorcycle. But that's all there is to it. Just tighten them up.